My husband's mom, Mill, compared my pregnancy to my sister-in-law's, saying hers was perfect and mine wasn't. After my sister-in-law gave birth, both she and my husband stopped talking to Mill. My husband and I have been married for more than 2 years, and we've been together for 7. He's amazing, the man of my dreams, and we have a great life together. My big Mexican family loves him, and I haven't heard anyone say they don't like him. He's respectful to everyone, which is why I fell in love with him. We rarely argue, except when it comes to this mom, Mill. Mill is difficult to deal with. My husband's family is smaller than mine. Besides his parents, he has a sister who got married last year. His parents are conservative Christians from a small town, and his mom is overly protective and controlling. She insists on spending holidays together as a family and causes a scene if we don't agree. When I first met his family, his dad and I got along fine. His sister treats me like her own sister, but his mom is a different story. She says sexist things to me, like when I told them I'm a marine biologist specializing in conservation efforts for marine life. His dad thought it was awesome, but Mill didn't say anything and just frowned. Later, my husband's dad called him to say that Mill wanted him to end our relationship because she thinks I'm not good enough for her son. She believes I don't act like a woman should because I have a job. I really enjoy being a scientist, and my husband has never told me to be a housewife or choose a stereotypically feminine job. If he had, we probably wouldn't be together. But apparently, that's what his mother, Mill, thought he needed. She complained that with my well-paying job, I might not become a housewife after marriage, and he should have found a better woman. My husband firmly told his dad, Phil, to let his mother know that who he chooses to marry is none of her business. I was relieved he stood up for me. This was a positive sign for me, and it's why I didn't end our relationship right then and thereafter hearing what his mother thought about me. Unfortunately, as we got more serious, Mill became worse towards me. Despite my husband trying to protect me, she made snide comments when we were alone, insisting that a good wife should be a homemaker. She also repeatedly told me I didn't look like the kind of woman my husband should have brought home because I'm not feminine enough to carry children. At first, I thought she might be joking, but when she kept saying it, I realized she was serious. One day during dinner, at her insistence, she went on a rant about missing a time when women took care of their families and men went out to earn. My husband responded, saying the world doesn't work like that anymore, and he's lucky to have a partner like me. We both earn well and take care of the house together. Mill shook her head, insisting that women should act like women and men should act like men. I knew she was intentionally talking about me, but I tried to stay calm. Phil told her to calm down and that it wasn't the right time for that kind of discussion. However, she got upset, seeing he wasn't supporting her. She continued saying she was just speaking the truth and wanted the best for her son. Then she looked pointedly at me. I had enough, so I quietly got up from the table and asked my husband to drive me home, which he readily agreed to. He looked at his mother with disappointment and we left. Later, when Phil called to mend things, I firmly told him it wasn't up to Mill to decide who her son marries, and she should stop taunting me about having a job. Phil agreed and tried to apologize on her behalf, but I wasn't having it. My husband supported me and told his dad that if she didn't apologize, he wouldn't go back to see her. Perhaps this threat scared her into apologizing to me, and she promised never to bring it up again. So I managed to let that situation roll off my shoulders. Unfortunately, some issues don't go away easily. Just a few months later, when my husband and I first started living together before getting married, and I had to go on a research expedition for a few weeks, she found out. She called me to ask who would take care of the house and her son. I was confused, put her on speaker so my husband driving next to me could hear, and asked her what she meant by that. She started to say how now that I was living with her son, I needed to stop being so immature. She kept saying I shouldn't go on these expeditions and should commit more to being a good partner to her son. My husband angrily told her he didn't need anyone to take care of him, and we were equal partners sharing responsibilities. She got upset, saying we couldn't get married because I didn't know how to be a proper wife. My husband asked her to mind her own business and cut her call, When he proposed, my Mill wasn't happy. She was even more upset when she learned we wanted a small wedding due to the expense and our plans to move into our own place. I decided to invite only close family members, with plans for a celebration with others later. But Mill argued with my husband, wanting to invite all her friends. When he asked if she would pay for their plates, she got offended, saying we both earned well and should be ashamed to ask. We stuck to our decision for a small wedding, making it clear she'd be responsible for any uninvited guests she invited. During the wedding, she loudly complained about everything and made it clear she hated my wedding gown. I ignored her because I didn't want to be hurt by her mean comments. My sister tried her best to keep Mill away from me for the rest of the evening. Last year in mid-April, we found out I was pregnant, which was great news since we had been trying for some time. We waited until I was around 9 weeks pregnant to tell our close family and friends. My Mill was upset she wasn't the first to know. She called me, saying she had every right to know first, and she was disappointed in me. I told her we wanted to wait before sharing such important news, and if she wanted to complain, she could. She could feel free to call my husband, as I was in no mood to listen to her lectures about what a good woman should do. Just a month after I announced my pregnancy, Sil told us she was pregnant too. We were shocked yet pleased, knowing there would be a new addition to our family. Sil wasn't married but had a serious longtime boyfriend whom we had all met. I knew Mill would make a big deal about Sil's pregnancy before marriage, which she did. My husband supported his sister, and eventually, Mill accepted it. Phil was emotional and happy to have 2 grandchildren. Sil and I started spending more time together since we were simultaneously pregnant. We leaned on each other for advice and companionship during this magical yet challenging period. While shopping for our babies and deciding on nurseries, Mill started constantly comparing our pregnancies. She turned it into a competition, saying Sil was better equipped to be a mother since she had always been a homemaker, unlike me with a job. Sil and I were bothered by her remarks. During my gender reveal party, I asked Sil to find out the baby's gender from our doctor to prepare the envelope. She did the same for her party. Mill became furious, having a meltdown, accusing me of taking away her grandchild by not allowing her to organize the gender reveal. She insisted my husband should put his foot down so she could be more involved. My husband didn't like how she was speaking to me, so he told her to leave or be permanently cut off from our grandchild's life. She made a scene, crying and insisting she wanted the best for her grandchild, but eventually left. Later, Phil and Sil called concerned about her behavior. We had to explain everything. Sil was shocked and urged me to rest, given the stressful situation. I was distressed after my Mill's screaming episode during Christmas. My husband told her we wouldn't be coming because I couldn't travel long distances due to my condition. She got upset, accusing him of straying away from the family, and hung up when he refused to change his decision. We hoped she understood. But a week later, she texted asking us to be at her place at 4:00 p.m. My husband reminded her about our earlier conversation, but she called screaming again, claiming he had no right to avoid family and accusing me of deterring him. My husband stood his ground, and she started yelling about him needing to control me. I began realizing how controlling and toxic Mill was becoming. I shared my concerns with my husband and Sil, and they agreed she was crossing the line. However, dealing with their mother was exhausting. When it was time to give birth, we didn't have time to inform anyone as I went into preterm labor at 33 weeks. Our baby boy was born at 34 weeks via an emergency C-section. After confirming our well-being, my husband announced our son's birth in the family group chat and informed my family. Everyone congratulated me, but Mill had another meltdown for not being told about the labor and birth. She texted us, insisting she should have been in the delivery room, watching her grandchild come into the world. I didn't reply, focused on my baby. When we announced his name, she called my husband, crying that it sounded too Mexican. She suggested a different name, but we didn't listen. When it was time for her to meet our son, she insisted on calling him a completely different name. My husband firmly asked her to stop, but she tried justifying it as her special little name for him. She also hates that I breastfeed my son because it takes him away from her. She suggests I start feeding him formula so she can spend more time with him. My mother explained the importance of breast milk for a newborn, but Mill argued it was unfair. Her taunts and controlling nature became unbearable. The final straw came when she invited me to lunch to discuss something important. Despite trying to cancel, she insisted we meet. At lunch, she asked about our son's godfather. I knew she wouldn't like the answer. I explained that my husband and I had chosen each other as our children's godparents. Mill burst into tears in the restaurant, yelling about how I could do this to her. She insisted she should be my son's godmother as his grandparent. I reminded her of her belief that Sil was better equipped, so she should be happy that my son would be taken care of well. She argued only she could be trusted and demanded to be his godparent. Fed up, I firmly told her we were done discussing it, and she could talk to my husband later. I told Sil about the lunch, and she didn't like that Mill wanted to be our son's godparent. My husband, too, couldn't understand Mill's behavior and ignored her calls. Last week, Sil gave birth to her daughter, and she asked me to be in the delivery room for support. I happily obliged, with my husband and mother caring for our son at home. After Sil gave birth, I made sure her boyfriend took over the duties. He revealed that apparently Sil, tired of Mill's toxic behavior, took a stand and decided to implement a no-contact rule between Mill and her daughter. Sil asked the hospital to refuse Mill entry, allowing only Phil inside to meet the baby. This decision was shocking and unexpected, as I had never imagined Sil would stand up to Mill in this way. It made me realize why Mill had been calling me all day, possibly trying to blame me or convince me to persuade Sil to see her granddaughter. When I talked to Sil later, I found out that this decision came after witnessing the extent of Mill's actions towards me over the years. Going no contact was a necessary boundary to protect her daughter from Mill's toxic influence. It was a moment of reckoning for Mill, as the consequences of her actions finally came crashing down. The fallout has been severe, and Mill is completely cut off from her daughter's life, unable to witness precious moments with her grandchild. Since then, I have started to think if it would be the right decision for us to cut off Mill permanently as well. Would it be too cruel? Update 1. Hello everyone. First off, I want to thank you all for your kind words and advice. It means a lot to me. My husband and I have not had any contact with Mill since we found out that Sil has cut her off. She continues to call us, but we ignore them. After discussing with my husband, we agreed that for our mental peace, it would be better to cut her out permanently, as there is no guarantee she won't behave the same way with our son. Everyone asking why we waited so long. My husband grew up in this toxic environment and didn't fully realize how wrong it was until his mother started misbehaving with me. He has always supported and protected me, but his mother is just too much to handle. We set up a group video call with his sister and Phil, where we discussed our decision, and they are on our side. Now we just need to inform Mill about our decision. Update 2. If you're itching for an update, sit down. It's a bit long. My husband decided to call his mother and tell her about our decision yesterday evening. When she first picked up the call, she started screaming at him about how long it had been since he talked with her and that she wanted to meet our son immediately. My husband remained quiet, and until she was done with her demands, and then gently let her know how she was right and that he needed to step up and be more of a man. Mill immediately agreed, saying this is what she had wanted from him all along. But my husband interrupted her, stating as a man of our family, he had decided to cut her off from us permanently to protect us from her toxic ideology and drama. Mill was dumbfounded at first, perhaps trying to process what he had just spoken. When she understood the severity of our decision, she started saying she was coming over to meet us and that nothing could stop her from meeting her grandson. My husband immediately warned her that we wouldn't let her in, and we would call the police on her for trespassing on our property. She then started screaming, claiming it was probably my decision and that I was tearing the family apart. My husband told her to think whatever she wanted, but he was done with her. She continued to scream, saying this is why he should have never married a woman like me and that she knew I was bad news all along. Naturally, my husband got angry. He reminded her that we were not the only ones cutting off contact, and Sil has done the same thing, So the issue is clearly her, and she needs to start accepting that. Mill, as usual, kept arguing back, claiming I had polluted the minds of everyone and successfully taken her children away from her. Exasperated, my husband told her if she wanted to blame someone, she should blame herself for being bitter and racist. He said everyone was just done with her, and she needed to come to terms with her own actions. This shut my Mill up, and he blocked her after their conversation. I have done the same. I've also informed my family about the situation and not to pick up Mill's calls for now. I feel bad for my husband and Sil for not having a supportive mother, but I'm also glad that I won't ever have to go through such shitty situations ever again. Update 3. It's been 2 months since my last update, and I'm happy to share that our son is doing well. S and I continue to remain close, meeting regularly for playdates with our babies. It's adorable to see how they are bonding, and I hope they continue to be each other's best friends as they grow up. Another happy update is that Sil is finally getting married to her baby daddy, as we all knew she would. Now, onto the main update. We continue to have no contact with Mill. For those concerned about our safety, don't worry, we have cameras installed everywhere, and we changed our locks. There's no way Mill can disturb us. I doubt she will ever confront us publicly, since many people know exactly why we cut her off, and she must be embarrassed. After we cut off all contact, she did try to persuade Phil to talk with us, but he refused and let her know he was getting sick of her too. I guess when her own husband told her this, it might have finally made her think. A few weeks later, she asked Bill to tell us how sorry she was for everything she had done to me. I doubt she genuinely feels apologetic, which is why we continue to not talk with her. Until today, Phil and my family continue to visit us and bond with our grandchild, which is how it's going to be in the near future. Mill got really upset at my baby shower. She insulted me and tried to name my baby, but things got out of control and she ended up getting arrested. I'm 29, married to my amazing husband Gary, and we're expecting our first child. Gary and I have been together for a long time, got married 4 years ago, and we've been trying to have a baby since last year. We were overjoyed when we found out about my pregnancy 6 months ago. We faced life's ups and downs together, and the news of our little one has brought so much happiness to our relationship. Every day brings us closer to meeting our baby, and we can't wait. Pregnancy has been a mix of emotions, from the excitement of finding out to feeling the baby kick. Gary has been my support through it all, attending every doctor's appointment, reading parenting books with me, and helping set up the nursery. We're fully in baby mode now, discussing names, decorating the nursery, and making plans for the future. Gary is thrilled to be a dad, and his enthusiasm warms my heart. We're sharing the preparations for the baby and facing the challenges and fun parts of pregnancy together, enjoying every moment. 2 months ago, we decided it was time to share the exciting news with our family. After making sure we passed the crucial first trimester, we invited our parents, close family, and friends for lunch. They were expecting a regular lunch, but when they noticed my growing stomach, their expressions changed to joy and amazement. My mother even started crying when she saw me and confirmed the pregnancy. My mom understood why we kept the pregnancy a secret and was happy to be a grandmother soon. However, Gary's mom, Barbara, had a different reaction. Instead of sharing our joy, she got angry when she found out we kept the pregnancy hidden. She felt left out and accused me of excluding her on purpose. Even though I tried to explain, she stayed mad and wouldn't talk to me. This put a damper on what should have been a joyful family occasion. Throughout the night, Barbara ignored me and even disrespected my mom, who had always been kind to her before. Barbara seemed upset, buried in her phone while everyone else talked. She openly told everyone how she had no idea about my pregnancy, making her feel like she missed out on time with a grandchild who wasn't even born yet. My husband and his brother noticed Barbara's frustration, and as tension grew, I reached a breaking point. I stepped out to gather myself, and my mom comforted me until I could return. At the end of the night, Barbara made a point of saying goodbye to me last, barely exchanging more than a quick greeting. Later, my husband walked them to the car, where they had a loud argument that I could hear from the foyer. Barbara used the opportunity to complain about me, making the situation even stranger. Luckily, all our guests had left by then. It was just my parents, Gary, and his parents left. Barbara angrily confronted Gary, expressing disbelief that I had the audacity to keep the pregnancy a secret from her, claiming I didn't consider her family. My husband calmly explained that we waited until it was safe to share the news, but Barbara started yelling. Their conversation went like this. Barbara, this is our grandchild. I deserve to know from the beginning. Gary, Mom, it's not about deserving. It was a decision we made together. We wanted to be cautious. Barbara, cautious? I am her mother-in-law. She should have trusted me. This is all her fault. My husband lost his temper, telling his mother it was their decision, and if she blamed me, she should blame him too. He asked her to stop attacking me and leave to cool off. Barbara stormed away, leaving my husband visibly frustrated and disappointed. I didn't realize tears were streaming down my face. Gary comforted me and guided me back inside. My parents stayed back, sensing the tension until I felt composed. Barbara didn't stop there. Later that night, I got a message from her. Anxiously, I read it, and it said, I must say I am deeply disappointed in you. You knowingly kept a significant piece of information from me, and I find it absolutely unforgivable. I can't believe you would rob me of the joy of knowing about my grandchild from the very beginning. This is not how a family should operate, and I find it disrespectful and hurtful. Instead of apologizing for your immature action, you are causing a divide between me and my son. Shame on you. Her words cut through me, and I felt a mix of anger and hurt. I showed the message to Gary, and he was furious. He couldn't understand why his mother would react so negatively and blame me. Gary decided to call her, warning her not to send such negative messages, as it might distress me further. He even threatened to cut her off if this behavior continued. Gary's words and angry tones seemed to have an impact on Barbara. Faced with the possibility of being cut off, she changed her tune. Instead of acknowledging her own role in the conflict, she proposed a solution. She claimed the only way she could forgive us was if we allowed her to throw us a baby shower. This sudden turn of events left us surprised and skeptical about her motives. She pleaded how nothing would bring her more joy than to throw a grand celebration for me and her grandchild, taking care of everything. Gary looked at me curiously, but I remained skeptical. Barbara's sudden change of heart seemed more like a tactical move to regain control and assert her dominance, rather than a genuine attempt at reconciliation. Despite my reservations, Gary, always wanting to find a middle ground and keep the peace, entertained the idea of accepting her offer. I expressed my concerns to Gary, stressing that accepting her offer might only fuel her belief that her behavior was acceptable. Gary understood my perspective, but hoped that allowing his mother to throw a baby shower could be a way for us to mend fences before the baby arrived. I reluctantly agreed, and Gary informed his mother to go ahead with the planning for my baby shower. She was overjoyed and expressed her gratitude for allowing her to take charge. Despite entrusting her with this responsibility, I assumed there would be some level of collaboration where she would seek my input and consider my preferences for my own baby shower, with the event still a month away. I expected more detailed planning for my baby shower in the coming week. To my dismay, my mother-in-law went rogue, taking charge of everything without consulting anyone, including me. When my mom tried to discuss the baby shower with her, my mother-in-law simply said everything had been decided, and it would be a surprise for me. The lack of communication and consideration left me feeling disheartened and frustrated. On the day of my baby shower, the air was filled with a mix of excitement and tension. I arrived at the venue, a local banquet hall, surrounded by close friends eager to celebrate our upcoming little one. However, I couldn't help but notice the outrageous decorations my mother-in-law had chosen. A sea of brown and beige balloons, creating a theme that was entirely her creation. I absolutely hated the decoration. It looked like a misguided attempt at a safari theme gone wrong. The overwhelming presence of brown and beige clashed with the vibrant atmosphere I had envisioned. I had imagined soft pastels and delicate touches, but my mother-in-law had gone the opposite way. Tension escalated when I saw an eye-catching display near the entrance. An enormous banner featuring an elaborate collage of my husband's baby pictures with Barbara. Everyone looked confused, wondering why she chose to display my husband's baby pictures during my baby shower. She laughed it off, saying she expected our baby to look exactly like my husband, and she was proud of how cute he was as a child. I stared at her, trying to comprehend if she had lost her mind. It was clear she was determined to make the day more about her experiences as a mother than about the imminent addition to our family. As more guests arrived, their expressions ranged from confusion to polite discomfort. Looking around the room, the sea of brown and beige balloons, coupled with the towering banner showcasing my mother-in-law and my husband, created an ambience far from the elegant and joyous atmosphere I had envisioned for my baby shower. I exchanged apologetic glances with some of my friends who clearly shared my sentiment. When my mother walked in, her eyes widened in shock as she observed the horror my mother-in-law had unleashed upon the venue. Her eyes then locked onto the banner, and I could sense her disbelief at the audacity of showcasing a collage that seemed more like an exhibition of my husband's childhood. In a bold move, my mother walked over to the banner. Her expression shifted from disbelief to determination. Without uttering a word, she firmly grabbed hold of the banner, decisively removing it from its prominent display. The room fell silent, and all eyes turned toward my mother as she carried away the intrusive display that overshadowed the celebration. I couldn't help but feel a surge of gratitude toward my mother for her unwavering support. My mother-in-law, who was busy talking to other guests, looked in horror as my mother threw the banner into the dustbin. In a disapproving tone, she asked what my mother thought she was doing, insisting the banner was a special touch to celebrate the baby and the family. Undeterred by the disapproval, my mother responded with a firm yet composed voice, asserting that the celebration was about me and my baby, not a showcase of my mother-in-law's personal achievements. The guests around them were drawn to this unexpected confrontation. Undeterred by the disapproval, my mother responded with a firm yet composed voice, asserting that the celebration was about me and my baby, not a showcase of my mother-in-law's personal achievements. The guests around them were drawn to this unexpected confrontation. My mother-in-law, sensing the attention shift, tried to regain control of the situation, explaining she thought it would be nice for everyone to know who was responsible for the event's beauty. She wanted everyone to see how cute Gary was as a child. However, my mother continued, reminding her that she begged me to allow her to throw the baby shower, and that it wasn't a platform for her personal agenda or an attempt to steal the spotlight. The room hushed as the exchange unfolded, with guests glancing at each other uncomfortably. Realizing her attempt to dictate the narrative had backfired, my mother-in-law retreated with a forced smile and returned to her conversations with other guests. Despite the tension lingering throughout the event, the baby shower continued, with me trying my best to focus on the positive energy for my friends and family. I thought there wouldn't be any more surprises from my mother-in-law, who seemed to be drinking a bit too much for a baby shower. We played various party games, and the guests were slowly starting to enjoy themselves. Then came the gift opening session, and everyone's thoughtful gifts for my baby were pleasant surprises. However, my anticipation turned to bewilderment when my mother-in-law handed me a conspicuously large gift box with an exaggerated smile. The room fell silent, and I felt a mixture of embarrassment and frustration. My mother looked at her angrily, and the guests exchanged awkward glances, unsure of how to react. Trying to diffuse the tension, I mustered a weak smile and thanked her for the thoughtful gift, suppressing the urge to roll my eyes. The situation escalated during the cake-cutting ceremony. My mother-in-law had ordered an extravagant tiered cake with over-the-top decorations. She made a big show of it, clinking her glass to make everyone look at her. Wondering what she was up to, we all looked at her curiously and waited for her to speak. Barbara then announced that she had come up with the perfect name for our baby girl. Keep in mind, we hadn't even settled on a name ourselves. She proudly declared that the baby would be named after her great-grandmother, with a name that seemed straight out of a Victorian novel. I was shocked and a little irritated that she assumed she had the naming rights. I stepped in politely, explaining that my husband and I wanted to pick our baby's name together. It was a decision we wanted to make as parents. However, my mother-in-law wasn't having any of it. She insisted she had the perfect name, and if I were a good daughter-in-law, I should accept it, given the money she had spent on the baby shower. I was shocked at her sense of entitlement. I firmly stated that only my husband and I had the right to name our baby, regardless of who hosted the baby shower. This decision was ours alone. That's when my mother-in-law started yelling at me in front of everyone, claiming I found myself in an extremely difficult situation as my mother-in-law, Barbara, became increasingly aggressive and disrespectful at my baby shower. She insisted that she should have the right to name my baby and criticized my upbringing, claiming I should be thanking her instead of denying her this supposed right. Barbara grew more and more aggressive, pointing her fingers at my face. My mother stepped in as a shield, but Barbara continued to shout, asserting herself as the actual mommy of my baby, claiming that she gave birth to my husband and it was his sperm that impregnated me. Her words were truly disgusting. Despite my mother's attempts to stop Barbara's nasty comments, she just got angrier, insulting me and claiming my mom did a terrible job raising me. It was clear she had too much to drink and trying to talk sense into her was pointless. The situation was getting worse, making everyone uncomfortable. Realizing the escalating situation, I decided I had endured enough humiliation. Trying to salvage some dignity, I walked out with the gifts my friends had generously brought, leaving behind the present my mother-in-law had given me. However, in her intoxicated state, Barbara snatched the gifts back from my hand and tossed them to the ground, accusing me of being ungrateful and a witch who was coming between her and her son. The tense atmosphere drew more attention, and I noticed some people starting to film the incident. To contain the chaos, I asked one of my close friends to politely request people to leave the event. Undeterred, Barbara continued hurling nasty accusations, creating a scene that no one could have anticipated. Frustration turned to anger, and as a last resort, I decided to call the police to remove her from my vicinity, as I was starting to feel extremely unsafe with her aggressive behavior. Yes, you read that right. I had to involve the police at my own baby shower because of my toxic mother-in-law. When the officers showed up, Barbara went into full drama mode, pointing fingers at me and painting me as the mastermind behind the chaotic event. The cops, thankfully understanding, attempted to reason with her. However, being drunk, she resisted their efforts and even started yelling at the police, which didn't work in her favor. The situation escalated to the point where she was arrested on the spot. I left the event with my mother and close friends, all of us shaken up by the unsettling incident. Since this incident, my husband and I have been dealing with the fallout. My mother-in-law is on a full-blown guilt trip, playing the victim card and garnering sympathy from some family members who were not present at the baby shower because they don't live in the same city. My husband, although he understands why I called the cops, thinks I took it a bit too far. He believes that I could have called him or his father for help. So Reddit, am I wrong for calling the cops on my mother-in-law for ruining my baby shower and pretending to be the actual mommy of the baby? Update 1. I am overwhelmed with the response I have received since deciding to post about my baby shower. I would like to thank everyone for supporting my decision to call the cops. I had never witnessed such an aggressive reaction from my mother-in-law before, and the level of aggression she displayed at the baby shower left me genuinely concerned about the possibility of physical harm, especially considering the potential impact on my unborn child. Since the incident, every guest who attended the baby shower has reached out to express their support. Some of them have even shared recordings of the entire debacle, which I intend to show to my husband. My plan is to have a serious conversation with him in the coming weekend about the future with his mother. Update 2. I showed the recording to my husband. As mentioned earlier, my husband and I found ourselves sitting down for a serious conversation about the events that had transpired. I explained to him in detail how his mother's behavior had escalated throughout the entire ordeal, from the hidden pregnancy revelation to the outrageous baby shower. I described in detail the yelling, accusations, and bizarre gifts she presented. I then shared the recordings with him, which he watched visibly horrified. Watching the videos seemed to bring a reality check for him, making him confront the uncomfortable truth about his mother's actions. He started to sincerely apologize to me for underestimating the severity of the situation and acknowledge that I was right in calling the cops. "I had no idea they had gotten this bad. I'm so sorry you had to go through all that," he expressed, his face reflecting both regret and frustration. He admitted that he had never imagined his mother could be this toxic, as this behavior seemed so out of character for her. He reassured me that he was on my side and emphasized that my safety and well-being, especially during pregnancy, were his top priorities. We then delved into the underlying issues, discussing how his mother's need for control and validation had overshadowed what should have been a joyous occasion. Gary, grappling with the reality of his mother's actions, shared his own concerns about her behavior and acknowledged that she had crossed a line. I told him that after how his mother had behaved with me in front of everyone, I wanted to cut all ties with her. I continued to tell him that he could have a relationship with her if he wanted, but me and our child would not be a part of her life, at least until his mother went for counseling to deal with her aggressive behavior. Hearing this, Gary expressed that what his mother had done was beyond disgusting, and he was willing to cut ties with her as well. I assured him that he did not have to do any such thing, but my husband insisted that his mother had disrespected me and therefore did not have the right to be in our lives anymore. He understood that his mother's behavior was not just about the baby shower, but might have been a culmination of long-standing issues. Moving ahead, Gary has reassured me that he will personally communicate our decision to his mother, making it clear that cutting her off from our lives is entirely his choice. I have also asked him to warn her that if she decides to show up unexpectedly at our doorstep to force me to accept her back into our lives, then I will be forced to call the cops on her again. Update 3. It's been a month since my last update. To everyone asking, me and the baby are doing okay. I can't wait to meet my child very soon as the date approaches. Since my last update, we have ceased all communication with Barbara. Gary had a conversation with his parents, and his father assured him that he would take the necessary steps to ensure that my mother-in-law understands the boundaries we've set and respects our decision. In the aftermath of cutting ties with Barbara, our lives have experienced a noticeable shift. The absence of constant drama and toxicity has brought about a newfound sense of peace and tranquility in our household. Gary and I are now able to focus on preparing for the arrival of our baby without the looming cloud of Barbara's disruptions. The support we receive from friends and family has been invaluable during this challenging time. My parents and my close friends have been pillars of strength, offering their encouragement and understanding. Even some family members who were initially unaware of the extent of Barbara's behavior have come forward to express their support after witnessing the shocking events at the baby shower through the viral videos. Our journey is far from over, but this experience has strengthened our bond and highlighted the importance of facing challenges together as a united front. The decision to sever ties with Barbara was not made lightly, but it has proven to be a necessary step for our well-being. While there may be lingering challenges, we are optimistic about the positive changes this choice has brought into our lives. As we eagerly await the arrival of our little one, we are determined to build a loving and supportive family environment that prioritizes the well-being of both parents and child.